Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Melee Via. I'm up here today at Immortals Inc. with Mikey.
What is up, John? It is getting hot over here on the northeast side.
It's getting toasty, but the book we're talking about today is going to take us to someplace a whole lot cooler.
Okay.
Because it's kind of damp and musty down there in the underworld.
When do we ever talk about something other than that? I mean, well, actually, you're right.
We got some stuff on the agenda.
We talk about a lot, too, if you haven't checked.
And actually, the last book we talked about in this line was from someplace hot and desert like the Southlands. But this one we're going to talk about is The Empire of the Ghouls. So this is published by Kobold Press. Wolfgang Bauer, who's kind of the big head honcho there, was the mastermind behind this originally, though there was a big team that kind of revised this version of it. Originally came out for 3rd edition, and then there was a 4th edition iteration. The one we're talking about today is for 5e. Came out after a 2019 Kickstarter, where they raised about $168,000 with about 2,300 backers. And then it came out in the summer of 2020. This gets back to Carlos has been cleaning things up and finding some older 5e books. And so we're talking about them. Yeah.
Nice.
And like I mentioned, this is connected to Midgard. So if you've seen our Southlands review, we talked about that from Midgard. And I think we talked about a couple other Midgard books along the way. I think there was one about the Feylands.
Yes.
We touched on.
Yes.
So this book is very obviously focused on what the cover says, a big honkin' empire of ghouls. So these are undead cannibals that have a massive culture, and most of that dwells in the underworld. So they've got this big subterranean empire that really the surface world is largely unaware of. There is a much smaller surface world enclave of ghouls that kind of calls itself an empire, but they're a splinter faction.
Is there an easy way to get into these subterranean areas, or is it probably hard to...
You know, the game is called Dungeons and Dragons. So,
right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's got to be
There's got to be ways to get down into the underworld.
Come on.
Right? Yeah, it's a given.
Some talking and
the book opens up with an underworld gazetteer, and that is definitely going to tell us how we're going to connect to the empire and what's in the empire. Talks about this ghoul empire's origins, a look at their capital city of Darakhan. And Darakhan is kind of a sandbox area, so if you want to have a massive undead city for your players to explore and interact with people, that's definitely going to be a great option for that. Religion is a big deal in this empire because there are 2 gods that basically have their own factions. You've got the god of death, which is not surprisingly a powerful entity amongst the pantheon of gods for an undead civilization. But then ghouls are, cannibals, right? They eat dead people, and maybe the people don't have to be dead when they start the eating. And so the god of hunger is the other big god for them. And there's kind of, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but those 2 gods are kind of in conflict here. It talks about ghoul armies, ghoul nobility, and the social structure. So you've got, ghoul nobility all the way up to the emperor, but then you also have ghouls who are pretty down on their luck and even homeless.
Wow.
How bad does that suck? If it wasn't bad enough when you were alive, then you're dead and you still have to deal with it.
You still have social classes.
Exactly. Then we get a review of the different locations of the empire, because it isn't just one city. It isn't just one large area. It's a freaking empire. There's a lot of different locations that are part of it. The heart and soul of this book is a campaign, and it is a 6 adventure campaign that'll take your characters from 1st level all the way up to about 13th level. So a pretty broad range there, and it's great because it's kind of a survey of Midgard. So if you're interested in the Midgard setting from Kobold Press and you want to touch on some different sections of it, the campaign's a great way to do that. This book, even if you aren't really into the whole ghoul idea, as a campaign element and as an opportunity to look in different parts of Midgard, it's really well suited for that. The first adventure, I'm going to try to not get too spoilery here, but I got to touch on a little bit about them. It's called The Dread Chambers of the Undercity. Characters start off at 1st level. By the end of it, they're probably going to be about 3rd. Starts in the free city of Zobek, which is kind of a area for, any kind of adventure you want to start in Midgard. And the characters are hired by a bunch of kobolds who are being falsely accused of abducting people. Not a big shock, but maybe our favorite undead cannibals are actually the ones behind these people that are disappearing. The next adventure is the Holy Robes of Sister Adelind. That starts out at level 3 and takes the characters up to about level 6. And the Clockwork Goddess wants a weapon to use against this problem of a ghoul infestation in Zobek. So the characters need to recover the entitled Holy Robes of Sister Adelind, and as they do that, in the process of recovering these robes, they start to uncover this larger ghoul plot. The next episode is the Blood Marriage. This starts the characters out at level 6 and takes them up to about 8. And in this, they travel to the Northlands, so another area of Midgard for them to explore, to stop a wedding between a priest and a priestess of death and hunger. Remember those two factions I mentioned earlier? Yeah, exactly. And at this point, we find out that the ghouls have captured a mortal nobleman and have some plans for that person.
To eat him?
It's much worse than that.
Oh, great.
If only they were just going to eat it.
I thought it couldn't be much worse. But
oh,
yeah,
no, they
I'm
find...
Sure,
yeah. Next, we go to the Catacombs of the Ghoul King, which are for levels 8 up through 9. Where the characters travel to the Southlands. So again, we're exploring a whole nother section of Midgard.
A lot of traveling.
And they're trying to find a group of clerics who have this magical technique for passing amongst undeads without them noticing. And in the process of finding that technique and learning it, they have an opportunity to quell down a massive undead uprising that's happening in the Southlands. From levels 9 to 10, the next adventure is into the Fulligan Realm, where they enter into the underworld. Probably ties into that whole question of how do we find them? Huh?
How do we get there? You'll find out.
And they encounter the former ruler of the Ghoul Empire, who might have some opinions. And then the final adventure of this saga is the Pure City of Vandakul, where the characters start out at the 11th level and make their way up to 13th, where they travel into Vandakul, which is kind of this capital city, and they try to stop a ceremony that could result in a massive shift in power within the Ghoul Empire. And they have a showdown in the Bone Cathedral, which is really, I think, a pretty cool name for a temple to a god of either death or hunger. Does it sound like
self-explanatory?
And that is the temple to the god of hunger, where bad things could potentially happen. Or the characters might stop bad things and maybe make things slightly less bad, since after all, it is an empire of ghouls, right? After that, we dive into an appendix. The appendix covers the Creed of All Flesh, which is the cult behind the god of hunger. Talks about the Red Sisters of Morena, which is a organization of vampire women that play a factor in one of these adventures. Get a whole range of magic items, all of which have kind of neat backstories and elements that tie into different parts of the campaign, as well as the Midgard setting. And then some magic items, some monsters that are new for the adventure, the setting, and some key NPCs, and then a range of random encounters and a whole bunch of handouts. It's a hardcover product. It's full color. It's about 350-ish pages from Kobold Press. You've got some really cool artwork in here throughout. Nice looking layout. Solid put together book. If you are interested in that kind of campaign with lots of undead bad guys, I encourage you to stop up here at Immortals Inc. and check it out on the shelf, or hit us up at immortalsinc.com.
Very well said, my friend. Go check it out for yourself. Go to the Underdepths. See you guys next time.
Till next time, folks. Good gaming.